Whether you decide to work at Pepsi, Coca-Cola, Dr. Pepper, or you decide to go to a beer distributor such as Miller Coors or Budweiser, you may be fighting an uphill battle. These jobs are 100% touch freight, which means that every case you see on the back of that trailer has to come off the truck via a hand dolly or a pallet jack. Now, this is work that may be attractive to somebody who wants to have a more active lifestyle given the sedentary nature of traditional OTR driving. However, many people who do decide to get into this industry may realize that not all money is necessarily good money. There are many things to consider when getting into the beverage delivery business. In my opinion, this job is actually way harder than food service delivery for a lot of reasons actually. Now don't get me wrong, these jobs are both physically demanding, very labor intensive. I mean, you have food service drivers that deliver upwards of 25,000 pounds of cases on a daily basis. And then I actually wonder, how many more thousands of pounds of cases does a soda delivery driver have to touch? Because soda cases are pretty heavy, and they're actually very difficult to maneuver around in a hand truck across all different types of terrain to get inside these convenience stores, these gas stations, and these mom and pop shops. But fortunately for these beverage delivery drivers, many of these distributors actually have the necessary equipment for their drivers. A lot of their trucks come with lift gates and pallet jacks, and this is actually something that's not the norm for food service delivery drivers. Companies like US Foods, Cheney Brothers, PFG, well, Cheney Brothers is actually owned by PFG, Gordon Foods, who else? The names of the food service companies are escaping me, but lift gates and pallet jacks are not the norm for these food service companies. And my message to these companies is that they need to do better, okay? Because we need to minimize workers' compensation claims, at least try to save a bag. That's just all I'm saying. Put a lift gate, put a pallet jack on the back of these trucks. Now, I will say this though, it is much faster to get the cases off the truck with a ramp in a hand truck as opposed to a lift gate in a hand truck. So that is something to keep in mind because time is money at the end of the day. This job, this beer delivery, soda delivery business is very time consuming. For example, unlike food service drivers, beverage delivery drivers, they actually have to wait to get checked in at these convenience stores, at these gas stations, and wait times can actually vary drastically. You can be waiting anywhere from 5 minutes to an hour, and a lot of times these companies, they put time constraints, they put time frames on which they expect you to be done at a customer. So when you have to wait for several minutes, hours, your 14-hour clock is just ticking and ticking. It really does lower your morale. Your day just gets longer. You just feel unmotivated. Kind of sucks, doesn't it? And it makes me wonder, how can somebody get a job like this done in 14 hours? It beats me. But I do know that a lot of times these beverage delivery companies on the side, they have separate positions for merchandisers. I know Pepsi, Coca-Cola, a lot of times you go to these convenience stores, there are already merchandisers there to, stack the product, put the product on the shelves, put the product in the coolers, rotate stock. Because when it comes to, being a driver merchandiser, you're pretty much doing 2 jobs, really 3 jobs at once, because you gotta drive the truck, you gotta unload the truck, and you gotta, stock the product. It takes a very long time. Now, with food service, you're also doing 2 jobs at once. I mean, you're driving the truck, you're unloading it. Sometimes you may have to, dig for cases, but really the goal with food service is to only touch a case once. If you have to touch it multiple times, then you're overworking yourself. And I feel like that's the case with soda and beer delivery. You're touching the cases multiple times because you got to put it up, rotate it, stock it up. It's just so much. Now, moving on, as with food service, many beverage delivery jobs will actually hire you out of CDL school. No experience, you have the opportunity to go local out of CDL school, and that's actually an option that's pretty attractive to a lot of people. Traditional OTR drivers, they go home maybe 30, 40 times a year. And with, these beverage and food service jobs, you go home every day as a new CDL holder. It seems like a great deal to a lot of people, especially if they have families, because, the lifestyle of an OTR, a regional truck driver, is very, very different, and the quality of life may actually be lower. And that's a lot of things to consider when you're getting your CDL. What type of quality of life do I want for myself starting out? But yeah, that's something to definitely take into account if you're somebody considering getting your CDL. Now, there is an argument out there that people would rather do this type of strenuous activity. Is much better for them as opposed to sitting for long periods of time, driving 10, 11 hours, 600 miles a day. And I mean, there is truth to that. I actually do agree with that. There are a lot of health issues and chronic diseases associated with sitting for long periods of time. And you may have a point, but you do risk injuring yourself being a local beverage or food service delivery driver. So there are cases to be made for both. It's more so of a pick your poison type of situation when dealing with touch freight or just no touch freight. Now, finally, let's dive into the pay differences between beverage and food service. Now, food service definitely takes the lead in terms of pay. Food service, it generally pays better than beverage and is not as time consuming, so kind of already seems like a better deal. Now, there are certain beverage distributors that kind of sort of pay on par with food service. I'll get to those later. But let's talk about the beer distributors, because they actually do not pay very well at all for the most part. I'm under the impression that they're under some sort of component pay system, because it's very hard to find how much these beverage companies really pay. So I can really only go off anecdotal stories. For the most part, back in, I guess, 2019, 2020, the average pay for a beer delivery driver was somewhere in the ballpark between $45,000 and $55,000 a year. And actually, if you follow I'm Anthony TV, he is somebody that started off his CDL career with a beer distributor. I think he worked with Miller Coors, if I'm not mistaken, and he was on pace to make $40,000 his first year as a new CDL holder, which is not a lot. And he worked very hard, and he only lasted there for 4 months. So that should definitely tell you something. And I was actually looking at Reddit posts, and a lot of people were saying pretty much the same thing. It doesn't pay much. A lot of beer delivery drivers eventually move on to do food service because it's also physically demanding, but it's much easier on the body as opposed to beer delivery. And another YouTube trucker by the name of G&B Great TV, he worked for Coca-Cola, and I'm pretty sure they also have some sort of component pay system. I don't think they pay hourly. I'm pretty sure they pay Chinese overtime. Yeah, but he also told me in the comments of one of my previous videos that he definitely makes way more now as a fuel hauler than he did delivering soda, as he should, of course. Now, there are, like I said, certain distributors that do pay hourly, and the pay is kind of sort of on par with food service, and those distributors are actually Dr. Pepper and Pepsi. Now, depending on where you live, these companies pay anywhere between $24 I've seen on the low end to like $30 I've seen on the high end. In my area, which is South Central PA, Pepsi drivers, they start off at $27 an hour. Dr. Pepper drivers, they start off at $30 an hour. But yeah, it definitely does depend on where you live. Now, if you work overtime, then you can definitely make 6 figures working those jobs. But here's the thing, hourly pay should be the norm with any beverage delivery job. I don't care what it is, because it's a very, very time consuming job, and you want to get paid for all your time as a local CDL driver. It definitely is much more worth it to, get paid for all your time as a local CDL driver. I'm getting triggered, y'all. I'm sorry, but this is just asinine, man. These trucking companies need to do better. But I actually want to end the video by saying this. Now, this is not a politics channel. I'm just relaying information that came out this week. While campaigning, former President Donald Trump proposed that he will not tax overtime. That's one of his proposals. And of course, it has to go through the House, the Senate. That's probably going to take infinity billion years. May not ever happen. We'll just have to see. And he may not even get elected. So yeah, we don't even know if this is actually going to come true. But if it does, if you're somebody that's looking to work for a Pepsi or Dr. Pepper or any type of hourly paying CDL job, if you work overtime, you could potentially have more money in your pocket. But yeah, like I said, not a politics channel. I'm just relaying that information to you guys. Let me know your thoughts, feelings, questions, concerns in the comments down below. You guys are the best audience on the internet. If you enjoy videos like this, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. I'm Taja Woods, and I'll see you next time.